Some people play emotional chess, but Sigma Empaths play the whole board. They don't just feel your energy, they read it, decode it, and quietly turn it back on you without ever raising their voice. Emotional manipulators try to pull the same old strings, but with a Sigma Empath, those strings lead nowhere. Because this kind of empath isn't soft, they're surgical. They see the motive behind every smile, the insecurity behind every insult, and the strategy behind every guilt trip. While others react, they observe. While others defend, they predict. And that's what makes them untouchable. They fight psychological wars without ever stepping onto the battlefield. By the time the manipulator realizes what's happening, the Sigma Empath has already walked away, calm, unreadable, and free. If you've ever been the one who feels too much but somehow always ends up 2 steps ahead, this one's for you. Subscribe to Brainy Empath, where we uncover the power of awareness, emotional mastery, and quiet strength. And tell me in the comments, have you ever noticed how manipulators get nervous when you stop reacting? Early detection through emotional frequency. Sigma Empaths don't need proof to know something is off. They feel it before it surfaces. Their sensitivity isn't weakness, it's radar. Long before words are spoken or masks begin to slip, they sense a shift in emotional frequency, that subtle tension, that forced laugh, that energy that feels just slightly off. It's not about paranoia, it's pattern recognition. They've spent years being overstimulated by emotions that weren't theirs, so now they can detect manipulation like a change in weather. Quiet, invisible, but undeniable. When an emotional manipulator enters the picture, the Sigma Empath doesn't confront them immediately. They listen, not to the words, but to the vibration behind them, the pauses, the inconsistencies, the emotional dissonance between what's said and what's felt. It's a level of awareness that's both a blessing and a burden. They know when someone's trying to provoke them before the person even realizes it themselves. And instead of reacting, they step back internally, studying, calculating, watching the emotional strings being pulled from a safe distance. This early detection gives them an almost supernatural calm. While others get caught in webs of confusion, the Sigma Empath is already several steps ahead, mentally documenting every manipulation attempt without losing their balance. They've learned that not every storm deserves a response, and not every guilt trip requires explanation. Their strength lies in restraint, in the quiet confidence of knowing what's happening without needing to prove it. By the time the manipulator thinks they've established control, the Sigma Empath has already unplugged emotionally. That's the real outsmarting. Not fighting harder, but feeling smarter, because awareness itself becomes their armor. They don't chase validation, they study intent. And once they see through the emotional illusion, there's no going back. The game ends before it ever begins. Silent observation before reaction. Sigma Empaths have mastered the art of silence, not as avoidance, but as strategy. While most people rush to defend, justify, or explain, the Sigma Empath does the opposite. They go still. In that stillness, they see everything. The tone shifts, the micro-expressions, the hidden motives, all laid bare under their quiet gaze. It's a moment of psychological clarity that unnerves manipulators, because silence forces them to reveal themselves. Every manipulator thrives on emotional chaos, but when their target refuses to feed it, the entire game collapses. Silence isn't empty. It's filled with analysis, pattern recognition, and emotional decoding. The Sigma Empath watches how someone behaves when they think no one is reacting. That's when truth leaks out. In the inconsistencies, the nervous laughter, the sudden defensiveness. Every word becomes data, every gesture a clue. They understand that to respond too quickly is to give away power, so they wait. And that waiting makes others uncomfortable. The manipulator begins to wonder, did they believe me? Are they angry? Are they planning something? But the Sigma Empath's calm gives nothing away. It's an emotional mirror that reflects the manipulator's unease right back at them. While others might get tangled in arguments or emotional traps, the Sigma Empath simply observes, collecting enough understanding to make one clean, decisive move when the time is right, and only then. This quiet observation also allows them to detach emotionally before taking action. They separate what's being said from what's being intended. They've learned through pain that reacting too soon often means losing control, and once emotions lead, clarity disappears. So they wait, grounded, unbothered, and unreadable. By the time they finally respond, if they respond at all, their words land with surgical precision. One sentence that ends manipulation, one boundary that doesn't need explanation, one calm withdrawal that says everything. Because the Sigma Empath knows that true intelligence isn't in reacting to every move, it's in mastering the timing of your silence. That's their quiet superpower, seeing the full game while the manipulator still thinks they're playing. Empathic logic, feeling without falling. Sigma empaths have a rare skill. They can feel deeply without drowning in emotion. It's what makes them so hard to manipulate. Their empathy is not chaotic. It's structured, intelligent, and precise. They sense other people's emotions like frequencies on a radio, tuning in just enough to understand the truth, but never enough to lose their own signal. While most people get swept up in the storm of someone else's pain or drama, Sigma empaths analyze it, not coldly, but consciously. They ask themselves, is this emotion mine, or am I being pulled into someone else's chaos? That question alone saves them from countless emotional traps. They've learned that empathy without logic is self-destruction, so they merge intuition with analysis, feeling what's beneath the surface while processing it through grounded reason. When someone tries to guilt them, flatter them, or provoke a reaction, they don't take the bait. They decode the motive. Every tone, every emotional shift becomes data, emotional mathematics that helps them understand what's really being said, not just what's being shown. This balance between empathy and logic turns their sensitivity into a weapon of discernment. Manipulators expect empathy to be a weakness, a soft spot to exploit. But with Sigma empaths, it's the opposite. They'll listen, they'll understand, and then they'll step back. Because they've learned that compassion doesn't mean compliance. They can care without carrying, understand without absorbing, and forgive without returning. That's the secret to their calm in the face of emotional chaos. They no longer mistake empathy for obligation. When others spiral into manipulation, they simply watch, feeling the energy shift, but never letting it take root. Empathic logic keeps them grounded in reality, while still seeing the emotional truth of others. It's what makes them powerful in a world that thrives on emotional games. They're not detached, they're aware, they don't avoid emotions, they manage them. And that emotional intelligence creates a quiet force around them. They can see through manipulation, through charm, through masks, all while staying kind, calm, and in control. Because the Sigma Empath knows power isn't in how much you feel, it's in how well you understand what you feel. Turning detachment into defense. For the Sigma Empath, detachment isn't coldness, it's protection disguised as peace. They've learned that the moment they stop emotionally investing in the wrong people, manipulation loses its oxygen. Detachment becomes their invisible shield, a calm, unshakable energy that says, you can't reach me anymore. It's not that they don't feel, it's that they've mastered the art of not reacting to everything they feel. And that control terrifies manipulators who rely on emotional chaos to survive. In the past, their empathy was an open door, always listening, always giving, always trying to heal. But after being drained one too many times, they realized something powerful. Not every connection deserves depth, and not every cry for help is genuine. So now they watch without absorbing, care without collapsing, and walk away without explaining. Their silence isn't indifference, it's awareness that not every battle needs to be fought, and not every broken soul wants to be healed. Detachment gives them clarity. When someone tries to guilt trip them or twist emotions into control, the Sigma Empath feels the manipulation but doesn't engage. They observe it like a storm in the distance. Fascinating but not worth stepping into. Their power lies in maintaining internal balance while others lose theirs trying to provoke a reaction. That emotional distance turns every attempt at control into noise that can't touch them. What most people mistake for coldness is actually wisdom. Detachment allows them to see situations objectively without the fog of emotional pressure. They respond only when it's necessary, and when they do, it's calm, firm, and final. No yelling, no arguing, just truth delivered with the weight of experience. Because when an empath learns to detach, they stop being the target and become the observer. It's not revenge, it's evolution. Detachment is how the Sigma Empath reclaims their energy, focus, and peace. They don't cut people off out of anger. They simply outgrow the need to be understood by those who manipulate. In that quiet separation lies their greatest strength. They win by walking away, not because they stopped caring, but because they finally started caring about themselves more. Reframing manipulation into insight. For the Sigma Empath, manipulation no longer feels like betrayal, it feels like education. Every time someone tries to twist their emotions, they don't just see the pain, they see the pattern. What once broke them now informs them. Instead of asking, why did they do this to me? They ask, what does this reveal about human behavior? That mindset shift turns emotional wounds into psychological data. Every lie becomes a lesson, every guilt trip becomes a case study, and every manipulation attempt becomes another reminder of how much stronger their awareness has become. They no longer take manipulation personally because they've realized it's never about them. It's about the manipulator's own emptiness. This realization frees them. They start to see through emotional games with almost eerie precision. When someone uses flattery, they read the insecurity behind it. When someone plays the victim, they recognize the control disguised as helplessness. They don't respond with anger, they respond with observation. And that calm observation steals the manipulator's power before it even lands. Reframing pain into insight is the Sigma Empath's quiet revolution. They stop labeling people as good or bad. Instead, they focus on understanding why people behave the way they do. This detachment doesn't make them cynical, it makes them wise. Because once you understand manipulation, it loses its ability to surprise you. What once felt like betrayal now becomes evidence, proof of patterns they can avoid, heal from, and grow beyond. In this awareness, the Sigma Empath becomes nearly untouchable. Their empathy evolves from emotional vulnerability into emotional intelligence. They can sense deceit, but they don't need to expose it. They can feel the hidden motives, but they don't need to confront them. Knowing is enough. That's the quiet strength of someone who has transcended the need for revenge. They move differently now, grounded, observant, and free. Manipulation doesn't shake them anymore, it informs them. They've replaced reaction with reflection. What once broke them now sharpens them. Because when you turn pain into wisdom, manipulation stops being an attack, it becomes a mirror that shows you how powerful your awareness truly is. Strategic silence that forces exposure. The Sigma Empath's silence is never emptiness, it's pressure. When they stop explaining, defending, or reacting, the manipulator's mask begins to crack. What used to be a predictable cycle, provoke, guilt trip, control, repeat, suddenly collapses in the face of absolute quiet. The Sigma Empath knows that silence isn't passive, it's strategic. It gives the manipulator nowhere to hide, no energy to feed from, and no emotional script to follow. The more the empath withdraws into stillness, the louder the manipulator's desperation becomes. At first, that silence confuses them. They throw accusations, false kindness, or even sudden apologies, anything to restart the emotional engine that once gave them power. But the Sigma Empath stays unmoved. They understand that breaking silence too early means handing control back. So they sit with the discomfort, knowing that the silence itself will do the revealing. In time, the manipulator exposes their own motives through panic, over-explaining, or reckless emotional outbursts. This Sigma Empath doesn't need to confront them. The truth reveals itself in the chaos they create. This kind of silence isn't revenge, it's clarity in action. It shifts the dynamic from emotional chaos to quiet accountability. When words can be twisted, silence cannot. It mirrors everything back with unflinching accuracy. And manipulators who thrive on confusion can't survive in clarity. The Sigma Empath uses that awareness like a chess player, not reacting to every move, but anticipating the endgame before it begins. For example, her empathicity is the endgame before it begins. Strategic silence becomes their emotional reset button. It protects energy, restores focus, and gives them back the space to think, to breathe. It's how they move from survival to power, from victim to observer. No shouting, no revenge plots, just stillness that makes truth impossible to hide. In the end, their silence speaks louder than confrontation ever could. It forces others to face themselves, often for the first time. Because when the Sigma Empath stops speaking, their absence becomes a mirror, one that exposes manipulation, reflects emptiness, and ends the game completely. And while the manipulator crumbles under the weight of that quiet, the Sigma Empath simply walks away, untouched, unshaken, and fully in control. Emotional reciprocity, giving only to the genuine. For the Sigma Empath, emotional giving used to be instinctive, almost automatic. They poured love, understanding, and compassion into people who hadn't earned it, mistaking empathy for obligation. But once they awakened to how manipulators exploit generosity, something changed. Their empathy evolved into discernment. They began to understand that not everyone deserves their energy, and that emotional exchange must be mutual to be meaningful. Now, they give only where authenticity exists. No manipulation, no pretense, no masks. This shift isn't born from bitterness, it's born from wisdom. The Sigma Empath learned the hard way that constant giving to the ungrateful leads to emotional bankruptcy. They started recognizing the difference between those who reciprocate and those who only consume. They no longer confuse pity with love or obligation with connection. When someone reaches out, the Sigma Empath no longer rushes in to heal. They observe. They listen not to words, but to consistency. And when they feel sincerity, they open up. When they sense deceit, they quietly step back. Emotional reciprocity becomes their new compass. It guides how they love, support, and interact. They no longer chase validation or offer comfort as currency. They match energy. They give what's given. This balance creates something powerful: emotional integrity. Their relationships become smaller but deeper, quieter but more meaningful. Instead of draining themselves trying to prove their worth, they let their energy attract those who can meet it with honesty and care. Manipulators can't function in this new dynamic. When they realize their emotional hooks no longer work, they fade away, starved of attention and control. Meanwhile, the Sigma Empath thrives in peace, surrounded only by people who bring harmony, not chaos. Emotional reciprocity becomes both shield and filter, a quiet force that protects their soul while amplifying their light. What once was self-sacrifice has transformed into self-respect. The Sigma Empath still loves deeply, but wisely. They know the true test of a person isn't how they act when they're loved, it's how they respond when boundaries appear. And in this new chapter, the Sigma Empath no longer gives to be seen or understood. They give because it's mutual. And that balance, more than anything, is what keeps their empathy powerful, pure, and untouchable. Peace as their ultimate counterattack. For the Sigma Empath, peace isn't surrender, it's strategy. It's the quiet, deliberate choice to no longer dance in chaos. After years of over-explaining, defending, and fixing what was never theirs to fix, they finally understand that peace unsettles manipulators more than confrontation ever could. When they stop reacting, the game ends. When they stop chasing closure, control evaporates. Peace, for them, becomes the most elegant form of power, one that cannot be stolen, argued with, or performed. Manipulators thrive on noise, arguments, apologies, emotional fireworks. They crave reactions because reactions mean relevance. But when the Sigma Empath chooses calm over conflict, the manipulator's entire framework collapses. No access, no emotional feedback, no chaos to feed on, just silence that forces them to face their own emptiness. That's why peace is not passive, it's psychological warfare wrapped in serenity. The Sigma Empath no longer tries to prove their worth or correct distorted truths. They've learned that validation from the wrong source is just another trap. Peace also transforms how they view justice. They no longer seek to win. They simply refuse to lose themselves. Every time they choose stillness over revenge, they reclaim energy that once kept them trapped in toxic cycles. That calm becomes contagious, an aura of grounded strength that no narcissist or manipulator can penetrate. People notice it. They feel it. It's the kind of peace that commands respect without a single word. This is the quiet evolution of the Sigma Empath, from emotional responder to spiritual strategist. They don't expose the manipulator, they outgrow them. They don't argue, they align. They stop needing to be right because they're finally free from the need to be understood. Their healing becomes their comeback, and their peace becomes their most devastating weapon. In the end, the manipulator fades, forgotten, while the Sigma Empath rises, calm, centered, and unshakable. No revenge needed, no bitterness left, just peace that radiates like armor. Because when you no longer crave chaos, you become untouchable. And for the Sigma Empath, that's the sweetest revenge of all: to live unbothered, unseen by drama, and completely at home in their own quiet power. If you've ever walked away from chaos and chose peace instead, you've already done what most can't. You've mastered silent power. The Sigma Empath doesn't win through revenge or recognition. They win by refusing to participate in emotional wars that drain the soul. Their calm is their weapon, their silence is their statement, and their peace is their legacy. If this message resonated with you, you're not alone. You're just evolving. You're learning to protect your energy and walk in quiet strength. That's the essence of true growth. If you felt seen in this video, make sure to subscribe to Brainy Empath, because this space is made for people who feel deeply and think independently. Leave a comment below. Have you ever realized that your peace was the moment you truly won? Your story might help someone else find their strength in silence.